Hello, it is Erica from the Teacher Next Door team. I'm here to teach you today how to use the results from a Google Forms that you sent out to your students. In particular, we're going to be talking about a reading assessment, a quick snapshot reading assessment, super short. You're going to give it to your kids. They're going to take 10 minutes to take it. And then you're going to take the results of that. You're going to open it up into a Google Sheets, which is going to be a whole bunch of data for you to go through. Together, we're going to learn how to analyze that data and sort it. We're going to color code it because we love color coding as teachers. We're going to color code it and we're going to develop small groups. Those small groups are going to be the groups that you serve in small group instruction while your other students are either working on independent work or reading centers. And you're going to serve those small groups with the instruction that they need so that you can differentiate your reading instruction using data collected right there on the spot. Not data from the beginning of the school year during a benchmark test, data from that exact day. Along with this, if you're watching this in real time, I sent out a link for a free set of reading assessments. This is the flash freebie for today. I'm going to send those out via email. If you are not watching in real time, there is a place where you can grab these in our TPT shop. So follow along with us. Please remember that because this is a video, you can go back and rewind. If you are not an Excel person or a Google Sheets person, do not worry. I wasn't back once upon a time either. This process, once you get the hang of it, will start happening in just 60 seconds flat. So let me show you the freebie and then we're going to get quickly into data analysis. So this is the flash freebie that I sent out via email. This is the character setting and events 4th grade assessment. This is from our bundle. So if I scroll down here on TPT, you can see that this is included in our reading assessment bundles. You can absolutely recreate this process on your own. You are more than welcome to. You are about to see the entire inside of this resource. You are more than welcome to use this process with your own assessments. If you are short on time or you just want something that's totally done for you, you do have access to the bundles as well over on TPT. Again, if you find us on TPT, we are the Teacher Next Door, and you're going to search reading assessments in our shop and you'll find them. All right, so this is the freebie. This is the character setting and events. I'm going to open this up in a PDF here. And once you open it, it looks like this. So we're going to scroll down. There are a ton of teacher notes here. So if you need to know how to issue these assessments in your classroom, you've got everything you could possibly need step by step here. The part I'm going to look for right now is the digital assessment. Every single paper-based assessment also comes with a digital version, which is in Google Forms. So if you scroll down here, you're going to see that you've got all of the printable versions. And on the bottom here, you've got A, you've got B, and then of course C. These again are short snapshot assessments. You have a short passage and a short amount of questions. Because we are only taking 10 minutes to take this assessment every time we give it, and we're not in the business of making kids sit in front of a computer for over an hour and answer a bunch of multiple choice questions. We're not doing that. We just want skill or standard aligned assessments where we're just testing one skill at a time. We're just testing the analysis of characters and their traits, parts about the setting, parts about events. So this is typically a skill taught in the beginning of the school year, especially in 4th grade. That's why I chose this one to give out for free right now as a flash freebie. Let's open up the digital version by selecting and clicking on this Google Forms image right here, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Once you click that link, hopefully you are already logged into your school account. If you're not logged into your school account, what you're going to want to do is open up your browser. I personally use Chrome. Make sure you're logged into your school account, go back to that PDF and click it. Whatever Google account you last clicked on is the Google account that it's going to copy into that particular drive. So we're going to make a copy and add that to our drive. I already have this one right here open for us, and all of my data has been imported. Now, I'm going to walk you through really quickly adding this to your Google Classroom. If you are not a Google school, you can absolutely still use this if you use Canvas or something else, but you are going to want to edit something, because if you have all of your kids answer these questions and you do not add a question for them to put their name in, you're going to have a whole lot of data with no names attached to it. So what you're going to do is click this plus sign. You're just going to write first name in here, type in first name, have the kids type it in. It's automatically going to change to a short response for you. Make it required so kids have to answer it. That's what you want to do if you're not a Google school. If you are, don't worry about that. All right, so we're in Google Classroom here. We're going to create an assignment. So you would normally log in, you'd see this. This is just my test classroom right here. Hit classwork, go to create an assignment. I'm going to go, got it. I'm going to go test assessment, and I'm going to find it in my drive. Now mine is under training right here, and I'm just going to simply find it in my drive and add it right here. I want it to automatically import my grades if I'm using the gradebook on here. If not, go ahead and deselect that. Then we're going to hit assign. So it's going to appear in our Google Classroom. When I send that out to students, and as students start to answer it, you're going to see kids who have turned it in or completed it, basically. Once you have kids who have submitted their responses, or everyone has, you can go back into this and click it. And what you're going to see is this here. You're going to see that I have 20 responses. Now this data here, this is just a test classroom. This is not personalized data here. We're not sharing any data on the internet or anything. This is just a test classroom. So I'm going to click this, hit the responses. And of course in Google Forms, it is really nice, and you can see all of these visuals here of, what students answered these, which ones they answered correctly. They put all of these graphs in here for you. This is really nice, but what I want to see is everyone's data, because I want to analyze my whole entire class and see who I need to serve first with scaffolded instruction on this particular skill. Now, I do want to let you know that my test classroom here, we were talking about the character settings and events, is the freebie. This one I'm using here is just to show you how to analyze this. This is my compare and contrast assessment. Now, you're going to do these the exact same way. This is just where I had the data. So ignore that this is the compare and contrast one. It's not going to matter. We're going to do this process the same way with every single assessment. And back over on TPT, if you saw that, there is an assessment for every single skill and every single standard at that grade level. So third grade has a whole set, fourth grade a whole set, and fifth grade has a whole set. All 10 fiction, 10 nonfiction skills. Every standard is in that particular bundle. This is the one we happen to be going over right now. So looking at this data, I'm going to select View in Sheets. And when this opens, this is a whole lot of data to look at. This tells me when the kid turned it in, what their score was. Now, I have taken out student names in here. I've just replaced them with student number just to keep it anonymous. And then it shows you every answer that the question at the top here, if you click on it, you can see it. And then whatever answer they answered. Now, what we're going to do together is we're going to turn this data into this data. I'm going to move myself over here really quick because I want to talk to you about this. I have taken my students and I have split them up into differentiated groups. I am going to serve the students who need scaffolding most first. Now, what I particularly do during this time is I have my students work on reading centers. I know some people have independent reading work, totally dependent on your class makeup, right? Some kids can handle reading centers, some kids need independent work. Now, because I am using a structured literacy classroom, I am using explicit instruction and teaching this skill first, but then I am taking a quick progress monitor or a formative assessment, quick 10 minutes. We're not sitting in front of that computer for a whole hour. Take it in 10 minutes and I'm going to differentiate my students. So my first group here, you can see, is in this black box. I'm going to show you with this data right here how to turn it into this nice color-coded sorted group where I'm going to serve group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4 in my classroom with differentiated instruction to meet each of those groups' needs. All right, let's do it. If you are not a Google Sheets or Excel person, do not panic looking at this. I was not once upon a time either. You can absolutely do this. Please remember again, you can rewind me, you can pause me, and you can come back to this whenever you need it. So the first thing that I see here in my students' results is the timestamp. That is not going to make a difference in the groups that I'm creating whatsoever. So I'm actually going to remove that. But before I touch this data, what I'm going to do is I want this hard data. I want to be able to come back to it just in case I need it. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to select this sheet. See how it's blue and selected? And I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate that sheet just so I have a hard copy of my data and then one that I can manipulate here and change around. Now it'll say copy of form responses 1. That's exactly what I want. Now, I don't need this timestamp right here. I'm going to select the entire column and you'll know that it's selected when the whole thing is blue in that vertical column right there. Over the top of the A, I'm going to right click on top of that. And now I'm just going to delete that column. I do not need that. I don't need the timestamp. It is now gone. Now, In here, I have my score first and student number. Yours might look a little bit different. And what I personally want to do is I want to put my student number first instead of the score. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that column again. I can tell it's highlighted because it's blue all the way up and down. And I'm going to use this. See how I hover over this? It's a hand. I'm going to click and drag that over to the left because I want my student numbers first. I want that in the very first column, that column A. I just clicked and dragged. Just click and drag. So I moved it all the way to the left now. Now, I do want their scores, obviously. That is the most important part of this entire process is I need to analyze those scores. Now, you can see that my scores are sorted here from the lowest score to the highest score, but your scores are likely all over the place. The way that I got it to be sorted that way, now let's see this. Let's change these around a bit. I'm going to pause my end of this. You're not going to see a pause here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change these scores around so that I can show you how to sort these from the lowest score to the highest score. All right, now for training purposes, I've mixed up all of my scores here because I want to show you how to sort these from lowest score to highest score. What I'm going to do is select that column B again, and hovering over that B on top, I'm going to right click. Now there's an option right here that says sort sheet from A to Z or Z to A. If you sort it from Z to A, it's going to have the highest number on top. If you sort it from A to Z, it's going to have the lowest number on top. I want my lowest scores first because that's going to show me which kids I need to serve first with differentiated small group instruction. So I'm going to click that button and you'll see that everything moves and it sorts everything in this Google Sheet. Now I have my lowest scores on top and my highest scores on the bottom. But if you remember what I showed you, what we're going to turn this into is a color-coded version of this. So once I click on this and sort it, I'm going to highlight that column again. Now I'm going to right click, and what I want to do is I want to easily, because remember, my kids just took this in my classroom and submitted their results to me. I want to quickly on the fly be able to analyze their results because I'm pulling these small groups in real time in the same day. Sometimes once in a while, my students will go to a special and I'll have some time to do this during my plan time. But most of the time, this is during reading instruction that I'm doing this on the fly. This is the quickest way to do this. Once I highlight that column and right click, I'm going to go to conditional formatting. Once I select that, I see how everything turned green in there. I don't want everything green. I want to sort it by color. I want to see different colors in there. I'm a teacher. I love color coding. I'm going to select instead color scale. Now, the default color scale that they give you is just this green color scale, but I want different colors because that's my preference. I want to choose this color scale right here, green to yellow to red. Now, you can see that this sorted my lowest group in green, my middle groups in that orange and yellowish, and then my highest groups in red. Now, in school systems, we typically do this backwards where we have our lowest kids in the red column where we know we need to serve them first. Like this is our brains telling us, alert, this kid needs scaffolded instruction. This kid needs support. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that red. Now it says the minimum value here is shaded in green. I want my minimum value here to be red. I want the lowest value to be red and I want my maximum value here to be green. I'm just choosing these automatic colors that were selected by Google on here. Now I'm going to press done. I'm okay with those colors. If you want to change them to purple, yellow, and pink or whatever colors you want, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm just using these to make this quick. Now I'm going to click done. And these answers right here, if I need to see what a student answered, I can always go back to this form and I can find their individual scores. I can just go to one of my students here, student 12, and I can find out what they answered for each of these questions right here. Now, because I already have a hard copy of this as well, I don't want these columns here. This is too much to look at. I just want to see the scores and the student number. That's it. So I'm going to select column C. I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard, hold it down, do not let it go, and select that last column, column G. And once you have all of those columns highlighted across, you're going to right click again, and we're just going to find the delete columns right here, delete columns C through G, click it, and they are now gone. So, and I've got a little bit extra data in here. I'm just going to do the same thing, highlight those columns, delete them. Now they are gone. So I'm going to move myself over here and I see that I have student numbers and student scores. I'm going to select column A. I like to have this sort of just centered in the middle. I'm going to select both of those columns by holding shift, and I'm going to find my center button and just center the student number and the student score. Now, I really need to think on my toes here if I'm in the classroom. I need to decide how many students am I serving in small group at a time. I will not go above 5 students in a small group if I'm at my kidney table, if I'm over at my carpet where I have a little bit more room and I know that several kids need some support on this skill. I will up my groups a little bit, but for right now, I'm just going to choose groups of 4 or 5. So my first group that I'm going to serve are my students who scored the lowest. So I'm going to select right here my first 5 students. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the way that I highlighted all of those was by clicking on the first cell, holding my mouse button down and dragging down and clicking the first 5 cells in column A. Now I'm going to move over because I see their scores and I just moved my mouse that way. I did not let go of that button. I'm still holding it down and I'm going to select that particular group of students. Now, what I want to do is I want to signal to myself that that is my first group. I'm going to find this waffle button right here. This is called borders. And what I'm going to do is select that border button and I'm going to group them together in a big square. The way that I'm going to do that is by selecting this outer border button. But if you click this, it's really thin. I don't know about you. I don't have the best of eyes. I want that border to be a lot thicker. So what I'm going to do is click this line button and I'm going to select the thickest border here. And it's going to change my border to a super thick border so I can see, okay, this is my first group of students that I am working with. Now, you might see that I have some students who scored 1 out of 5 in this group, and my next group is also going to have students who scored 1 out of 5. It is totally up to you. If you want to work with all of the kids who scored 0 out of 5 or 1 out of 5 at one time, that is your call as a teacher. You know your students best. You know your class best. You know, can you work with a larger group? Look at those student numbers. You're going to know who can work with who, especially a couple months into the school. You're going to know what's going to work best. Use your best teacher brain, your best decision making to form these groups. I'm comfortable having students who scored 1 out of 5 and 2 out of 5 together because obviously those kids are not proficient in this skill, and I'm going to mix it up anyway. And these groups are fluid. Just because we took this first assessment, this first quick 10-minute snapshot assessment, I'm going to assess again in the middle of my instruction. It's going to be a different passage, a different set of questions, but we're still assessing the exact same skill. It's still going to be about characters, settings, and events, or compare and contrast, or whatever you're working on that particular week. So I'm okay combining this 1 out of 5 and 2 out of 5 group here. That's totally fine with me. So I see here I have 6 kids here. Now, because I have 6 kids here and the next group of students I have are 3 out of 5 kids, like kids who might just need like a little bit more practice. Remember, they've never been instructed on this at grade level. This was the first assessment that they took. If they're at 3 out of 5, that's fine. They're still receiving classroom instruction. We're good. So what I'm going to do with this next group is I am going to combine this group and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to break that rule, my 4 to 5 person rule, just so I can fit in this group because these kids are still going to need a lot of scaffolding with this. So I'm going to select that 9, hold down my mouse button, drag down until I get to student 12 here who scored a 2 out of 5. Go over to column B so everything's selected. An easy way to do this as well is by clicking that student 9 right here, holding shift, and I'm going to click this cell right here, B12, and it's going to highlight that whole rectangle shape for me. And I'm going to go back to my waffle button, my borders button, and I'm going to select the outer borders, and it remembers that I want the thick border, and that group's group 2 for me. Now, my 3 out of 5s, like I said, they just need a little push. If I'm working with group 1 and group 2 here, these groups are likely going to take a little bit longer of small group instruction than my group who scored 3 out of 5 here, because they're just going to need a little bit of support, not as much as group 1 and group 2 here. So I'm going to select A13, this cell right here, hold shift down on my keyboard and select this cell right here, which is B16, highlight that rectangle. This is only a group of 4. If I'm gonna use my teacher brain to predict what instruction in this group is going to look like, it's gonna be some tailored, focused small group instruction about character traits, figuring out what the setting is of a passage, talking about the plot or the events. We're gonna go through that pretty quickly. So I'm gonna use that group of 4. It's a smaller group. I can go through this instruction a little bit faster, and I'm gonna put a border around that because I know I wanna meet with those kids together. Now, my students who scored 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, I'm okay grouping them together because they're proficient. We're at 80% and 100%. My 4 out of 5s might just need a little bit more classroom instruction, but they also might need some enrichment. They might need that challenge, right? So I'm going to group that group together. This is a group of 5 students. I'm going to select those cells. Again, select A17 right here, hold shift down, select this cell right here, which is B21, highlight them all together. I know that they're highlighted because they are blue, and I'm going to select the waffle button and put an outer border on that. And now I have 4 groups of students that I'm going to serve with small group instruction over at my kidney table in the back of my classroom. My other students are working on my reading centers. I personally use the reading centers from the Teacher Next Door. They are tailored that you can pair. If I'm working on compare and contrast, my students are working on their reading center, which is also the exact same skill. We're skill focused, so we can kind of hone in on those. This allows me to have more time in my structured literacy block to work on newer things like morphology, work on support with decoding or syllabicating words. This frees up my time because I'm not mixing everything together. There's no fluff with this either. We're just forming groups and focusing on one skill. This gives me more time. It takes a lot of training at the beginning of the school year to get this going, but it is so worth it. Again, to review, I'm going to go into my reading centers time or my independent work time, and I'm going to meet with these students, student 15, 18, 3, 4, and 8 first. I'm going to take about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to gauge in there. If these kids need more time, I might go a little bit beyond that. I might go into 15 minutes. Now, people with shorter reading blocks, you might need to split these groups up. You might only be able to meet with 2 groups in one day if you do a 15-minute and a 15-minute block. You're going to need to look at your school schedule, which I promise you is not going to be ironed out until probably well into September at this point. Give yourself grace, but try to meet with these groups to deliver scaffolded, differentiated instruction after you've delivered explicit reading instruction. Give them this assessment, pull those small groups, and you will start to see results because these kids are getting what they need. A big thing I want to talk about before I end this training is that we're constantly asked as teachers to differentiate in our classroom, and we are very rarely given the tools to do just that. If you keep this data, do not delete this data, do not get rid of it. If you keep this data and you have questions that come in from a reading interventionist, a parent, a guardian, a principal, and you have this data to show them, here's the system that I'm using in my classroom consistently throughout the year. I have all of this data. I personally also keep track of which students I meet with on which day. I do that on paper. I've also done it on the computer. I'm just a paper person. I just put the kids' initials in that book. If you have that data and you ever need to bring a student who needs some sort of intervention plan eventually, because remember, this is strictly for tier 1 instruction. This is your core instruction. But if you are moving to potentially put a kid on some sort of intervention plan, you've got the data that can back you up. Stakeholders love this data because it's the proof in the pudding. We are assessing our kids, we are meeting with our kids, we are delivering differentiated instruction, and here is the data, here is the proof. This is a huge selling point, and it can back you up when you need to be backed up if you get a question from, like I said, an administrator, a parent, a guardian, whatever it may be. Now, again, my name is Erica from the Teacher Next Door team. You can contact me with any questions you may have. Hopefully this helps. You might need to go back and watch this training more than once because learning how to use Google Sheets like that is definitely a learning curve. Give yourself some grace, but I promise you, if you do it a couple times, you'll get the hang of it and you'll do it in real time in your classroom. And then you'll have an administrator walk into your room and they'll be blown away that you are truly differentiating and you are using reading instruction that has been data informed not from benchmark data from the beginning of the school year, not from old data, but on today's data, and you are using that data to inform your instruction on the fly. It is an impressive system, highly, highly recommend it. Again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.